welcome everybody. I will just jump in and get started real quickly here there we go, with a quick, just about Metrigy slide. For those of you who don't know who we are, our name says a lot about the company. It's a combination of two words, metrics and strategy. So we go out and we conduct a lot of research with IT, CX, and business leaders, and just ask them what they're doing, who they're using, what they're spending, what their drivers and inhibitors are, all sorts of questions. And we really also look at what kind of success they're seeing when they use different technologies. And we use those metrics to help, just guide our clients, our enterprise clients, our vendor clients, on a variety of their different strategies. You can see the coverage areas. I focus in on digital transformation as well as customer experience and contact center. So I'll be talking from that vantage point today. And I'll be referring to a couple different research projects that we've done throughout the presentation today. They're typically anywhere from about 700 to about 1,800 research participants in each one of those studies. They are global, covering North America, Europe, and Asia Pac. So that just gives you a little bit about us. Brian? Oh, I think you're on mute.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you for reminding me I'm on mute here. As Robin said, I'm Brian Heikes. I am the Director of Product Management here at Webex Connect, which is part of the Webex CPaaS solution suite. We're really focused on powering great CX for enterprise customers by enabling digital communications between them and their customers with a enterprise-grade system that we're using to power these interactions for some of the world's leading brands. Really focusing on how do you orchestrate and automate these conversations to provide a great experience and then drive it to the most relevant outcome, whether that's something automatically happening or driving to an agent in a contact center or driving to an online in-person interaction. We focus on being able to power that interaction and drive that through our platform. And we'll go into that in a little bit here. But before we dive in on that, Robin, you were talking a lot about the research that you guys have been doing. Would you take us through some of that of what's coming up here in the next year? Because you just finished a number of really interesting surveys and studies that sort of drive into what we're talking about.
Yeah, I would be happy to do that. I'd like to start from just kind of a high level, first of all, and just look at spending. So what are we seeing? I mean, obviously with the economy right now, the uncertainty, we've certainly seen layoffs and things like that. What's happening with spending? We did, as a result of what's happening in the macro economy, look at that in a recent study. And actually, by the way, this study is of 400 companies, and it is global. And this particular study, we did find out that technology spending is still strong. Right now, we see only about a quarter of companies actually increasing their overall business spending in 2023. That's the plan right now. But 49% plan to increase technology spending in 2023. That doesn't mean to say 51% are decreasing. Actually, most are staying flat. I think there's about 15%-ish that are planning to decrease in 2023. But the key point here is that, even though companies do see, there's not as many companies increasing spending, there are quite a few who are planning to increase technology spending. So technology is holding pretty strong. Specifically, I will say that customer engagement technologies are holding very strongly right now. So we asked organizations, about specific technology areas. So those who are, actually we asked everybody what their plans were, whether they're going to increase, decrease, stay flat when it came to all these different technology areas you can see on the screen right now. And customer engagement had the highest percentage of companies who are planning to increase spending in that area, even higher than security. So it just kind of underscores how important that customer engagement, that customer relationship, anything you're doing to serve or interact with customers, it's really, really important, more so than than any of these other areas on the screen that you're seeing here today. So it's pretty huge.
And Robin, I'd say that, we see that reflecting in our business quite a bit recently. We see a number of projects being accelerated, especially in economic headwinds, where businesses are saying, hey, I get a bigger return on my investment here, or I can get greater efficiency in the system, or I can increase that customer satisfaction and retain that customer longer so I don't have to go out and market for them or otherwise. So this is, we're seeing a number of projects really just pulled in as people say, oh, with all these other challenges, this is my way I'm going to make ends meet better in the difficult environment that I'm facing. And so it's, just lines up with what you're seeing.
Yeah, exactly. And in fact, we did ask, what's going on with CX spending? Because they want to understand, well, why is this? Why is there an increase? Mm-hmm. And we asked these kind of questions in all the different areas we looked at. And with CX, it's kind of interesting. Number one was just the technology investments are reducing our overall operational costs. When you're thinking about a time frame where, okay, we're worried about the economy, we're worried about spending moving forward, anything that you can invest in that's going to reduce costs is an investment worth making. So a lot of that happens with automation, of course. And some of the arrows that I put here on this chart really kind of, point to the use of CPaaS and CPaaS automation, which we're going to get into here as the presentation goes on. But when you use CPaaS, when you automate functions, as an example, instead of having to manually call everybody and remind them of upcoming appointments or service calls, and you can do that automatically without anyone having to, lift a phone, lift a finger. That's going to save costs. It's going to save your operational costs. We also saw companies saying that customer demand for things like self-service, non-voice digital channels is so high right now that we can't stop the momentum. So, customers are getting used to this. They like the ability to use self-service in the appropriate, when it's an appropriate interaction. If you suddenly stop that investment and stop moving forward, you're going to start getting customers complaining. You don't want to have that. Another area where you see CPaaS coming in is in that self-service, in that automation, non-voice digital channels. We need to invest in CX technology to augment a shortage of contact center agents. I just gave an example of how that might help, but just being able to use technology, just to help in these areas is pretty big. In fact, we see that when companies are short on their agents, they have a shortage in the contact center, they spend about 53% more on technology in the contact center than those who are fully staffed. So we clearly see companies using technology to just help in this shortage. Can't find enough people. We see economic downturn. Yeah.
I was going to say, Robin, on that point, I think it's one of those great factors when you think of so many of the channels in CPaaS, how they're asynchronous. Right? They don't require a one-to-one full-time communication. I can handle 3 or 4 people via SMS or pass parts of the conversation to an automated agent to get those standard 6 questions that you have to answer that you don't really need a live person doing. Really becomes a force multiplier for your agents from a CPaaS perspective there.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. We see some companies just saying, hey, it's an economic downturn. This is a good opportunity to actually spend more on CX and gain a competitive advantage. In some cases, they might be able to get better deals because there isn't as much spending from some of their competitors. In other cases, they see that people in their industry aren't spending as much. So the smart ones are going to start spending more because then they can leapfrog the competition and come out of the economic downturn in a much better position than they went into it. So we do hear companies saying that. One that I feel is somewhat understated is just that customers wield a lot of power right now through social media, through online ratings. And if you cut spending, that could cause some, social media flurries, some bad ratings, and you don't want that to happen. There goes your customer churn's going to, increase. You're going to lose customers. You might not be getting a lot of referrals, bad ratings. You don't want any of that. And then agent-facing technologies can help us retain agents, and we can't afford higher turnover rates. So this is where you do things like agent assist, and you can have other automation technologies, other automations that are going to help your agents, even using virtual assistants, things like that. That again you can get through CPaaS automation as well. So spending's good, despite the economy. We're seeing strong growth still in the customer experience space. So with that as a backdrop, let's just make sure, first of all, before we go into more details, that we're all on the same page as far as definitions and what do we mean by CPaaS. It's something that's changed a little bit over time, how people are using it, what they define it as. But the way we define it is that it's obviously communications platform as a service, as the acronym. It allows companies to customize a lot of their CX features by doing things like adding real-time and typically cloud-based communications capabilities, so things like click-to-call, things like live chat, video messaging, to existing business communications, existing applications, existing platforms, your website. So just to be able to integrate that automated communications into things that you're already doing. Many companies using APIs and SDKs from the CPaaS providers to develop their own applications, to customize existing maybe low-code applications, or even integrate them into something that they're already doing. And many people use either internal, third-party, or CPaaS employees as developers to create or customize those apps. But as I'll talk about in just a minute, you don't always need to have developers. And I think that's one of the biggest changes in CPaaS, is that everyone used to think, if I'm using CPaaS, I need to have a developer army. And that is not the case anymore. We'll talk about that in just a second. I will say that by the end of this year, based on research that we did in December of 2021, about 68% of companies had planned to be using CPaaS by the end of this year, so by next month. The highest adoption was in Asia Pac, followed by North America and then Europe. But what we're seeing here is just some really good numbers. This is just the average of what we were seeing as far as revenue increase, 14.4% before and after using CPaaS. Costs were dropping by almost 13%, customer ratings going up by 15%, and agent efficiency by 16%. Now, again, these were the average numbers that we were seeing, and there were some companies who just didn't see any difference, so a zero would factor into here in the averages. But when you get into our research success group, so the research success group had to have a minimum of these numbers that you look at on your screen. They were seeing well into the double-digit numbers in all of these areas. They were really seeing some fantastic results, really good increases in revenue in particular, really good increases in customer ratings as well. So those were some really important factors that they were seeing as they were implementing CPaaS. So going further on the definitions, when we look at CPaaS, there's certainly different ways you can approach it. You can do full code, you can do low code, you can do no code. So if you look at it from a pyramid perspective, the biggest number of applications really would be falling into the no code area. So this is where most of the needs are met. They're out of the box applications. You don't need to have any development skills. So basically lines of business can implement these applications. You don't need servers or cloud-based. And you just have very easy, user-friendly drag and drop tools that can provide some customization for what you're trying to do. And they're really great. And they continue to expand and grow over time. Low code, very similar, but you might want to be able to do a little more customization, maybe a little bit of coding required to complete the application development. The line of business can usually implement this in some cases, maybe not always. There are no complex programming languages that you have to be required. So like a semi-skilled developer or a lay developer can kind of use like basic logic and visual interfaces, a lot of the drag and drop capabilities to customize something and make it a little bit more your own. And then you've got full code. Now that's basically like a platform. It's a very flexible platform. You can use a variety of different programming languages on that platform. It's primarily used in just really customizable, very high skill. You have to scale to a high number. And this is where you have your skilled developers. They may be internal, they may be external, it doesn't matter. They're using this platform to basically create and test and further customize apps. So this is kind of a look at, maybe a little oversimplified, but a look at the three types of approaches for CPaaS.
Hey, Robin, a question for you related to this, and it's, we've got, the three different types of approaches for CPaaS, but you highlighted full code was the, sort of where everybody was coming from, right? That was the expectation in the past. While you get that power cord going, do you have, no worries. Do you have any insight, or did you get any data out of your surveys of, where do you see people really starting today? We've got the momentum of full code, but we've got a wide range of low code, no code tools coming in. Do you see people ramping in and, really adopting those tools in terms of the start, or are people still following there's an API for that and I can get my dev team to go crank it out for me? Where do you really see the flavor out there in the industry right now?
Yeah, I honestly think it's really heading more toward the no-code area, maybe a little bit into low-code, just because there are so many options already available now for people that you don't need to deal with developing your own applications. So let's get an API and let's integrate it into some applications we already have. But I think that the highly customized nature of CPaaS, I don't think it's going to go away. I just think it's going to be for how it's intended, for very specialized and customized use cases. But I think we reach more of the masses with no code and low code moving forward, and just being able to use simple APIs and just simple out of the box applications and get these just get up and running very quickly with something like a click to call, get up and running very quickly with something like an SMS message to remind you of an appointment. Those types of very, very incredibly useful but and functional applications that you don't need this big army to develop. That's what we're seeing, Brian. I don't know how you guys are seeing it in Cisco.
I'm glad to hear you say that same thing, because it is where we see, and I think it's where do businesses start, right? There's so many great examples out there of really rich, really robust applications. Everybody looks at that and goes, "Oh, I want that." But the reality is you can't start there. You have to start more simply than that and work your way up. And that's where we sort of approached it with the tooling set that we've developed, is make it easy to get started, and then you grow it over time based on customer feedback, because it really is about that customer experience. And you need your customers to help sort of refine where you go. So get started. Like you said, my favorite is start with a text message, and notifications. It's just a notification. Yes, it's highly powerful. And then you build two-way off of that, and then you grow it to interactive, and then multi-conversational. And start with something where you have a tool set where it's not, okay, I got to go back and get on the IT plan, and 6 months from now they can do release number 2. And 3 months after that, it's release number 3. Make it so your analysts can go do it yourselves. Oh, look, that's an interesting piece of feedback. Let me put that in, and 2 days later it's live. So very much aligned with you on that's the way to approach it. I'm glad the industry is looking at it that way. Well,
and to your point, start simple. And I think we've seen that whenever we look at like research for digital transformations and things like that. If companies are very focused and a little bit conservative in what they're doing when they start adding something new, they'll show quick success. To your point, like, okay, we'll start with a one-way message. Hey, customers like it. Let's get some feedback. Make sure they like it. Make sure it's resonating with our customer base. Okay, great. We're getting good feedback, but we're also getting feedback. Hey, I'd like to be able to text you back, but I can't. Great. Now it gives you the sort of the feedback and the opportunity to take that next step up. And now we'll do two-way. So definitely take that stepped approach to what you're doing. When we look at our success metrics in our research, those are the companies that show the best success, that are doing it in a stepped approach. They're doing it very deliberately, very focused. They're not trying to boil the ocean. Once you start doing that and say, okay, we're doing this major CPaaS initiative or whatever, major AI initiative, whatever the technology is, and we're not going to release one thing until we've got it all done, well, you've just set yourself up for failure. You really have. So start and then just keep building and building and building, and customers will like that.
Absolutely.
All right. So let's get a little more real now. We know people are spending money in the CX space. We know that they're spending in CPaaS. The numbers of companies using it are going up. We know what it is. So let's talk about sort of CPaaS in action. What are companies actually doing? And we asked just kind of quantitatively here, what are some of your adoption plans? Where are you? You can see SMS messages. Really just telecom minutes is another thing they buy from CPaaS providers. Social messaging, analytics, and web chat. I would highlight analytics over here, no matter what you're doing in technology, but particularly in CPaaS, because there's so many different ways you can go with CPaaS. Make sure you're gathering the analytics about it. Get customer feedback, get passive feedback. Are we handling more interactions because now we have a CPaaS application or automation built in? Get those analytics to really show you if what you're doing is working. If it is, great, build on it. If it's not, figure out why. Go back and revise everything, go back and fix whatever's broken or whatever's not working before you move on. Because if you keep moving and aren't analyzing what's going on, you could just perpetuate a problem and make it even bigger. Web chat is certainly one. So those are kind of the big ones there. Then you've got application APIs, still over half of companies planning to do that, and workflows as well, click to call, and then virtual assistants. So really high adoption in all of these areas. But I'd like to talk about some of the typical scenarios that we see explicitly even driving revenue. Because once you can start implementing a technology and show that you're driving revenue because of it, it gets really easy to continue getting budget, to keep doing more and more. One thing is just voice or video messages to remind your customers about their appointments. missed appointments, missed revenue, whether you're in healthcare, whether you're in financial services, kind of doesn't really matter what the industry is. If you're missing an appointment, that, insurance, whatever, that's going to cause a problem with revenue. Then you've got SMS and business messaging services, so things like Facebook Messenger, Instagram, Google Chat, all those. Send things out proactively with seasonal discounts or reminders, maybe to reorder a product. Maybe you're ordering vitamins online and you're just about out, but you don't realize it. But now you're going to get an SMS message to remind you to order it. Wow, that's nice when you go to take your vitamin and realize you don't have any. It would be nice to have gotten that message, right? So that's a good thing to have. Outreach for loyalty memberships. So if you see somebody who's really a very loyal customer, being able to bring them into some sort of loyalty program, very good things to do. Click to call and web chat that gives customers really quick answers or advice on their products, and maybe even some recommendations on complementary products using things like tying in CPaaS with predictive analytics, for example, to kind of, okay, I've just bought this product and 10 other people who bought this product or 100 other people who bought this product also bought these other two things, maybe make this recommendation. Another great way to be increasing revenue and using SMS and CPaaS to help do that. Workflows to guide agents on upsell and cross-sell. So anything that you can do with CPaaS to kind of embed that into your workflow for an agent. So maybe you're on a call and a workflow might suggest, okay, in 10 days, send out this SMS, you can click a button, and this might help you to get some upsell or cross-sell that you might not have otherwise gotten had that not been built into the workflow. And then even virtual assistants just to guide customers on the products or services that they're looking at in a self-service channel. So you may not be a live agent on a call with somebody, but they may be, in your self-service channel, they may be looking at a product or service. And if you can have a virtual assistant in there kind of giving some guidance, maybe making, a suggestion on a complementary product, maybe making a suggestion to buy a warranty, or maybe making a suggestion to go on auto, delivery on something. All those things are going to help drive revenue. And they're all automated, and they're all really helping to augment what you're already doing with your live salespeople, customer service reps, et cetera.
Yeah. Robin, I guess, you got a couple of great examples here of different classes of them, but I think we've all sort of run across some of these in real life, right? We all hit the doctor and get an appointment reminder. Is there anyone that you've run across? I've got my favorites, but I'll put you on the spot. Any that you've come across that you really enjoyed? Maybe you don't have to call out the brand, but who's done it? Who's given you a good experience lately that surprised you and delighted you and made you go, oh, I want to stick with that company because they get me?
Yeah. It's interesting. Yes. If you asked me this maybe a week and a half ago, I would have said it was my internet company, believe it or not, that allowed me the ability to reschedule on a chat. That was great. But I recently had to take my car in for service, and it was just a local dealer here. I had not had this type of service before from a technology perspective, or from a service perspective, to be honest. So they actually came. Part of what I bought when I bought the car, they actually come, they pick up your car for you, they take it in, so I don't have to leave my office or anything. They take it, they fix what needs to be fixed, and then they bring it back to you, and they leave you with a loaner. So it's kind of a nice service. But what I wasn't expecting was that, on my phone, I got an SMS message saying, that morning, okay, well, first of all, no, the day before, reminding me that I had the courier was going to come and pick up my car. I don't know if they call it courier, whatever, going to pick up my car at whatever time it was in the morning. So I knew that was coming. That morning, I got another SMS message saying the name of the person who was coming with a picture of her, and that if you click here to see where she is, I could follow her the whole way up. I knew exactly when she was going to be here, so I could meet her outside. She got there, and when she left, I got pictures of my car and the loaner car, just so I had those records. Here's how everything looks in case they scratched up my car or anything like that, which I thought was great. And when the car got to the dealership, I got a text message saying your car has arrived. We're going to start looking at it now. Got an update at the end of the day. We know what the problem is. We will have it fixed tomorrow by whatever time it was. If you need to talk to anyone, I had a human on there too. If you need to talk to anyone, his name was X, and here's his number. I didn't really need to because I got everything I needed from these automated messages. So imagine that this person at a car dealership I had to take my car in a couple months ago, And I was calling several times trying to get updates. Now I'm getting them proactively. I'm fine. I'm not bugging him. He's more productive, I'm assuming, in his day. And then the same thing on the way back. Your car has left. Here's the link. Here's here's who's taking it back for you. And I could click, and that whole integration with the maps and being able to see where they were. I mean, what an experience! And that was all automated. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Great compared to the prior experience. That's a pretty advanced case, as compared to what we talked about. But it's as a starting point. But that is a great example of something that grew, and probably by feedback, added a number of those. The notification of, hey, your car got to the store. I wouldn't have thought of that ever to originally put in, but yeah, got one of my major investments in life. Can you let me know when it actually made it okay? It makes sense. So that's a great example of, it actually touches on several of these scenarios you hit here.
There was one more thing they did, Brian. There was one more thing they did I forgot about. When it was done, click here to see your reports. I clicked there, and of course it was like, we've also done this 5-point inspection for you. And they had a whole list of the things they recommended I do. So there was their upsell. Now, I didn't do any of them, I'll be honest, but I thought it was, from a technology perspective, I thought this is great. I clicked on a link, and all I had to do was check if I wanted any of them done, and they would have done them before they had to return it to me. So, your air filter change, things like that. But I thought, what a great idea.
Well, that's a great example of taking what used to be an in-person process of, here's what I can get. I think we've done a number of buy online, pick up in store cases over the last 2 years, right? COVID shut down a lot of brick and mortar, and you lost those, spur of the moment, I'll call them the end cap sales as you walked out. Well, for buy online, pick up in store, it was great to be able to add you bought the TV. Did you remember you needed the monster cables or the HDMI cable to hook it up? Click here to add your order, right? That's a great example of that, very similar, but it's value add for the customer, and it's value add clearly for the business, who otherwise was losing that opportunity when they couldn't have people in the store, and we're trying to find other ways to transact, especially in this digital transformation of everything. Well, how do you recreate new opportunities for these channels for creating that revenue stream that you had before?
Yep. Totally agree. But yeah, so there's a lot of cool examples like that, but that was one that was just recently happened that I thought was pretty cool. Yeah.
That's a good one. Yes. I'll admit. I like that one.
Yeah, and it's just like a small power, it's a Lincoln dealership. It's not it's not like but it's just one dealership. It's not like it's pretty cool that they were able to do that technology.
I think it goes to show how a lot of value-added service creators, some ASPs are building on top of CPaaS to offer a value-added service. Right? Hey, I built this, and I can take it to every car dealership, and all of a sudden, underlying it is CPaaS, the use of it, as you're going to APIs here, and a bunch of integrations into different systems on the back end to make that, such a seamless experience. It just goes to show, there's new opportunities being created in the market for people who are looking to use CPaaS to power other types of businesses and creating a sort of a new middleman there with creating value.
Well, and I think that's where you get more and more no and low code applications. Maybe the very first instance of this particular application was highly customized and required a lot of developers, but then you can basically just kind of commercialize it almost. You make it into a no code, low code application, and you get more and more and more of these things happening by verticals and so on. And it's just going to keep growing.
Exactly.
Makes sense. So, we talked a little bit about APIs. We certainly see that those are growing. So as of the end of last year, when we did this study in December, 29.8% of companies said that they were planning to increase their use of APIs drastically by the end of 2022. 36% saying they were going to increase somewhat. Only about a quarter basically saying they were going to stay flat, and very few decreasing. So definitely a lot of interest in using APIs. They're trying to accomplish specific goals, like we've talked about, like SMS confirmation of an appointment, or maybe even shipping confirmation. I think moving forward, we're going to see APIs addressing more complex workflows, not just push notification, because that's gotten to be pretty basic now. We're pretty good as in all industries doing that. But some of the top customer service issues that we see APIs addressing, again, customer notifications and appointment scheduling, even intelligent call routing. So I need to get an answer, but I keep getting bounced around to people who can't answer my question. Well, can you get me right to the person who can answer this? I need to talk to someone live. Even payment processing, there's a lot of complexities in payment processing. So being able to, make that a lot easier to do using some APIs. Shipping confirmations as well, like we talked about, and then even automated call flows. So using like advanced IVR type functionality to make the flow of a call. This isn't so much call routing as it is, okay, I've got to go from A, B to C in order to make this happen. Make sure that that's all automated. We also do, however, see that most companies expect to pay for APIs. You can see about 46% say we always pay for APIs. You've got about 36% developing their own APIs, so they're not paying somebody else for it, but they are, in fact, paying their own developer resources for that. You have about 30% who say they try the freemium versions first of APIs, and then they'll pay if it delivers value to them. Only about 28% saying they use freemium versions only, and less than 10% are not using APIs at this point. So a lot of people doing something with APIs. And then when we talk about who is involved with that purchasing decision, it's definitely more your IT people, so your CIO, CTO, director level, VP level, and IT. But then we've got some CX people, so your chief customer officer, director level and VP level and CX, depending upon what that API is going to do. A lot of times you want to get the customer and CX facing people involved, and even sales and marketing people, depending again on what you're doing with that, what kind of information or analytics you might be driving from that. And then lastly, I wanted to go into some of the customer interaction channels. I always get questions about this. Well, okay, we're using CPaaS. What does that mean for interaction channels? Do I need to integrate CPaaS into everything? How many interaction channels are people using, and so on? It depends on the size of the company, but the number, by the way, of interaction channels ranges anywhere from 5 to 7 is the average on the interaction channels. You can see that email is still the top channel that companies are using to interact with their customers. This is a percentage of companies using each one of these channels, followed by voice. So, email, voice, it's been around forever. Not very many companies are going to get rid of it. But then you've got things like social media and business messaging apps. This is like your Facebook Messenger, Google Chat, Instagram, things like that. Instagram Chat, that is. So Instagram as an app would be in social media. And then you've got SMS, then web chat, in-app chat. So if I'm on a mobile device and I'm in an app, what kind of chat do I have there? Visual engagement, so this is where you're using video, screen share, co-browsing. Knowledge management, and then a lot of the AI, like conversational AI, intelligent virtual agents, and voice bots. So this just kind of gives you an idea of the different types of channels companies are using. This is actually data we gathered in April, so it's pretty new. And we talked to companies about their overall digital first strategy, and I'm starting to loathe a little bit, even though we use a lot, the word digital, because digital means everything now. Like, what's not digital anymore, right? So I'd like to always suggest to people, when you use digital, try and define what you mean by that. And in this case, we're talking about just having a strategy that allows customers to use various non-PSTN voice channels, so web chat, business messaging, virtual assistant, so on, to interact with the business. And then that communications history over any channel is going to be integrated. And that's where I think we've got some work to do as an industry overall. We've got to integrate those channels better. But if a customer starts in a self-service channel and then has to shift up to a live agent and voice or video, the agent has that historical context from that day and previous calls last month or 3 months ago or whatever. So we've got about 36% of companies saying that that's their strategy now, and another 21% planning to implement that at some point by the end of 2022, and another 17% by the end of 2023 or even beyond that. But really only about 7%, if you look at the yellow slice of the pie, only 6.97% saying that they have absolutely no plans to do digital first. So a lot of companies are doing this. I will tell you that about 73% of all interactions still go through voice, either initially or they have to be escalated to voice. So voice is still king. Don't get me wrong there. But when we can use digital channels in the right way, we see about 35% of all interactions going directly to a digital channel first, and we're actually solving those within the digital channel in about 79% of the cases. So we're doing a lot better now than we were doing just even a year and a half ago when it was about 60%. So things are getting a lot better.
I was going to say that trend, the erosion there, Robin, of voice. It's not because people necessarily want to go voice. It's because it's what's available and has been available for so long.
Oh, that's a good
and like
point.
You said, from 60 to 70%, right? We're all of a sudden seeing a trend where alternate means that have a successful resolution are now becoming common. And I think that's a trend and a change that we're seeing where it's momentum. Of course, momentum is going to stay there. I've invested in it. I'm not going to invest in something new. It's working, but it's not necessarily the way customers in this day and age want to interact. Millennials, some of the studies I've seen, don't actually want to pick up the phone, right? You walk into a hotel room and if you want more towels, it used to be hit 0 and dial the front desk. Now it's send a text message and room service will drop them off outside the door and you don't have to talk to anybody, right? It's a fundamental shift that I think is coming generationally that will continue to drive this moving forward.
Yeah, and there are
Sorry, I cut
you
off there.
No, that's fine. And there are some things that, voice, you have to use voice for. You just really need to talk to somebody live, but you're also going to have a lot of those follow-ups that are automated. And that's where I think that we're seeing companies say, okay, we know that there's cases we have to use voice, but voice can be a very costly operational channel as for follow-up too, just to do automated follow-ups using CPaaS as a way that you can reduce those costs and kind of couple your voice interactions or your live video interactions or even live web chat interactions with some automated functions as follow-up. I think that works out very well. What's driving those digital first strategies? Well, Brian, to your point, customers are demanding digital channels, number one, and they could only select one here, by the way. So that was most widely selected, or improving customer satisfaction right behind it. Making agents more productive. So, hey, if we can offload or automate, I'm trying to, some of these, if I just need to check on my warranty status or transfer bank balance, there's no reason I have to talk to somebody. We all know that. So that does make the agents or the customer service rep, salespeople more productive. In some cases, it's just an executive mandate. In other cases, they look at digital first actually as a way to help them to sell more products and services by having the digital strategies and having some of the automated predictive analytics in there. And then just reducing operational costs, no surprise there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian and hear what he has to say.
Yep. I'm going to pick up right where Robin left off because we're sort of in lockstep here, right? Customer expectations, that first box on Robin's last slide there, really have been changing, which is driving the need, really for businesses to update. And it's across everything, and apps started this, but now we're seeing more and more in sort of interactive or conversational channels, and regardless of which of the channels being used, and from email to voice to SMS and WhatsApp or Apple Business Messaging for Business, right? There's a huge different range of options available for businesses today to be able to satisfy that. And I think one of the real challenges, and Robin, you sort of showed the cascade of all of the different ways that people can, right? It's only getting more complicated. Yeah. Right? In the past couple of years, we've seen more and more options come up, and they keep becoming richer and richer in terms of the interactivity and the, I won't say the human-like, but I'll call it the app-like and the robustness of the interaction you can drive there. We all think of SMS and text as that interaction, and okay, you got to send a message back. But now we've got multiple different providers who have the ability to put in cards and carousels and video embedded, and all this at a reasonable price with reasonable throughput, so you can deal with it, sort of personalization at the mass side to bring that through. And I've always had the question that people have asked, wait, so having an SMS where somebody has to type yes to respond to versus that, or having a button where they can click, does that, for yes, does that really make a difference? I mean, it's pressing Y and enter, or it's clicking a button. Does that make a real difference? And I would reference one of our clients who's run prescription notifications with us for about 10 years. And they added RCS capabilities where we substituted, instead of reply yes to refill your prescription, to click yes. And we actually saw about a 7-point increase in the number of people who on the first message clicked yes. I mean, that material, you can't change the wording and get 7 points of lift. We've tried tuning it for years, but you had a button and all of a sudden you got that much lift. That's crazy in terms of what these new channels can bring. And that's why we see sort of the push to adopt them. There's a lot of innovation going on. And, I think one of the challenges, though, that brings is, as enterprises are looking to meet the customers there, making sure it's, in a brand friendly voice to meet those needs, and making it as easy to connect. You have to be in all the different places where your customers are, because your customers are not a homogenous group, right? Some brands will have everybody is on Facebook. Some brands will have everybody is only using SMS. Some are, well, all I've got is email. And it really depends on your demographics. And a business needs to meet their customers where they are and then follow them as they migrate. As a new brand, we know people migrate as groups from one channel to another. And so as your clients migrate, you need to make sure that all these systems that you've built actually flow, and all you have to do is change the channel and not all of the logic and the interaction and the experience. You just have to leverage the new channel as you move forward.
You've got to gather your customer insights. Like, you've got to be out there gathering feedback from your customers to know that, like to know if they have switched channels or they do prefer another channel. You got to do those analytics.
Absolutely. And you've got to track how are they using your products as you go through. Robin, you mentioned, seeing interactions that move across channels. You've got, you highlighted that and sort of right at the end. That is one of those pieces where you have to be agile enough as you grow this from the simple to the complex. You have to be able to switch channels with your customer. Nobody likes the case where you call up customer service and you go through the IVR and you enter your account information and you verify who you are. And okay, the operator says, "Oh, I can't help you. Let me pass you to a human." And what are the first two questions you always get? Who are you again? What's your account number? Please validate your birthday. Why did I bother typing all of that? Just, zero, give me an agent, right? Until we can bridge that gap and make it value add, that's such a detriment for businesses. But when done right, it can really, drive some amazing outcomes. We did Robin, you were looking at sort of the revenue side. One of your earlier, I think it was 14.4% lift in revenue, if my note is right. We actually did one with one of our clients. This was a banking client where we did a return on investment, look at sort of the total economic impact there. And what we found was, by switching over to using SMS for notifications and going to a low-code system, they actually were able to have a fairly significant return on their investment for bringing the platform in, because they were able to move a lot of what they've been doing as a bespoke, high-code developer CPaaS approach, and they moved into an enterprise CPaaS with a low-code tool. They basically got 50% additional productivity out of their team working on it. We're able to turn events and changes around faster. They were able to use the analytics, as Robin, as you keep sort of highlighting, to say, "Oh, wait, this flow isn't working. I need to modify here." And they could roll it live in days and see the results. And the net is, at the end of the year, ended up with over $1 million in cost savings. Now, this was a larger bank, so your mileage will vary, but it's just sort of illustrating of, okay, as you move down that stack from the high code to the low code to the no code, all of a sudden you can move functions to other parts of the business and get a lot of efficiency out of that as you're driving there. Right. And I think that's really one of the keys I wanted to point out is, right, interaction with your customers is complex, and the things you can do to simplify that as you go through it, moving that down that stack so you can democratize that through the rest of your organization, becomes very powerful as a business. Right? If you think of large enterprises, you have lots and lots of different applications that stand between your customers on all of the different channels and your core business systems. Right? You've got, I'm using a telco example here, but right, you've got, I need to order a new SIM, or you've got, a customer care, a setup, you've got contract updates, you've got all sorts of different places that need interaction. And if you build those out on a one-by-one basis, you build a lot of silos where you're solving the same problems over and over and over again. And that's where I think, Robin, to why when you were talking about no code being adopted, that's one of the reasons why I think that's so powerful, is it solves a lot of those repetitive problems, be they integrations to my existing core infrastructure, or customization for channels, or solving things like, do I have consent to send a message to this user? It's a very simple problem. Does my system generate a message at a time a customer would actually like to receive it? Right? A lot of us have back office systems that run both processes at 4 a.m. I guarantee you none of your customers want SMS messages or WhatsApp messages at 4 a.m. It's just not what they're going to be looking for from your business. And so how do you solve that problem? If you solve it on a per channel basis or on a per application basis, you're solving it over and over and over again. So find a repeatable system. And that's one of the things that I think with Webex Connect and platforms like us that we solve in the industry, and we remove that recurring problem. And I'll use I'll stick with my telco example just for a second. I just want to illustrate one workflow. And it's not a simple one. I didn't, while I say everybody needs to start simple, obviously the more fun ones to talk about are the more complicated problems that we look to solve. But how do you proactively engage prepaid customers, right? Prepaid customers usually, a lot of people say, oh, that's not a big market. It's a huge market. There's a lot of people on prepaid phones still. And, right, they either buy X number of minutes or X number of gigs of data, and then they get throttled and their experience goes down. And one of the big challenges is, well, it's a pain to re-up that. And it may be just easier to stop by the store and pick up another prepaid on a different provider. And there's a lot of churn there. And so one of the challenges is, well, how do you give a good customer experience to prevent that before the customer shows up at the store and says, oh, that phone's a little cheaper or that plan's a little cheaper? How do you get them engaged mid-month when that goes on? And so this is an example of a journey that we see being built on the platform. Now, there's a trigger in the system, usually from the back office that's saying, oh, wait, this customer's reached their threshold, 80%, 90% of their data. At that point, there's a lot of checks that have to happen before you send a message out. Wait, is this a customer we want to send a message to? Is it a first month user, or is it, is this like the 15th month in a row they've had this happen? That would help you choose which offer do I actually want to present them. Are they in good standing? When was the last day they updated? You have a lot of business logic that you want to work in there from existing back office systems where you're going to pull that data in. At that point, you got to check, consent, check time zone, and do all of those things to make sure you're going to deliver the message to the person at the right time, right? That's sort of the holy grail, right message to the right person at the right time. Well, okay, we can help you solve two of the three just with the orchestration of, well, making sure you've got those checks. And then, Robin, you touched on it earlier, APIs for payment providers, right? The complexity of, well, how am I handling taxes based on where is this person at? Is it a 4% tax, a 5% tax, or is it free? What do I do here, right? There's people who solve that. You don't need your CPaaS provider to solve that. You just need your CPaaS provider to work with them to solve that. And so all of that comes together to generate that first message that's personalized to the user that says, hey, your service is due, but we see you've used too much up. Would you like to re-up early? And that message is generated out, which is a great start. But if you think of these channels, they're asynchronous. It was one of the things we highlighted earlier, right? You can have multiple conversations at once. It doesn't have to be real time, like Robin and I talking here. I could send her a message and 2 days later she could reply, and we'd have that back and forth that way. So, well, in the case of a billing reminder, well, okay, the person replied 2 days later. Is that still a relevant message? Do I want to actually interact with it? Is the offer still valid? And so you have to actually check all of that before you start doing that interaction and revalidate it. And at that point, you can get the user to, they actually say, okay, yes, the offer's still valid. I would like to re-up. You actually drive into that third-party payment provider through an API, top up the account, and notify the customer, hey, you're good to go. Don't worry about it. We've got you covered. That's a great proactive experience that helps solve a problem that the user had. And as I think of this, and Robin, taking it back to what we were talking about earlier, start simple, right? What's the simple version of this that our customer really started with? Was that first message, hey, you're about out of messages, or you're about out of minutes on your plan. Go re-up. And that used to drive people to a store to buy a card, and you'd scan it and you'd add it to your account. But then this grew organically over time of, well, wouldn't it be great if we could do re-up on the phone? Ooh, that's taking that analog process in a store and moving it onto a chat. How do we do that? And it took a lot more integrations, a lot of working back and forth to solve that. But it was one of those where it started simple and grew over time as we added each of the steps. And I think that's was sort of the path to success here for the client. And I think as a sort of summarizing the capabilities up there in how we look at it on the Webex Connect platform, I would break it into 6 key pillars. The first one we've talked a lot about here, which is channels, right? And it's orchestrating that interaction. For us, we've got 16 different channels. It keeps growing because there's a new. It seems like there's a new channel out there every month, or new capabilities that are being introduced. Apple and Google are both introducing new channels. Google Business Messages coming online. We've just rolled out a couple there. But starting chats from your search, right? Inside your search results, you've got instead of a button that says call, you've got a button that says chat with an agent. How powerful is that? I can get an answer right then in an asynchronous method. But really the opportunity here is trying to future-proof your applications, insulate those applications from the changes from adding additional channels, right? That flow that I just showed you, the business logic really doesn't need to change if I move it from SMS to Instagram, right? All of that, the checking and all of the integration to the business systems, it's the same. And so we want to make sure that, as businesses build that out, all you have to do is change out the channel. On the reverse side of that, sort of the far end here is integrations. And, we know everybody's invested a lot in existing infrastructure. Let's be honest, right? There's some big spins that have been made, but they're not really, those systems are not really designed for managing customer journeys, and definitely not sort of the scale that we see. We don't want to be looking at a CPaaS where you're going to have to rip and replace your existing systems. You've got to find a way to integrate with your existing environments, really in order to automate these journeys. And whether it's through you're calling a simple API from your CRM, or you're calling a workflow and triggering some complex logic, doesn't matter. You want something that's got the ability to get data from your existing systems and push data back to them, because that's how you're running the rest of the business. From a Connect standpoint, we've got out-of-the-box integrations with CRMs, DMPs, marketing, commerce channels, etc. But we also really look at it as, we know everybody's built something a little bit custom. And, I've got a Salesforce implementation, except it's not standard because I did this.
Right.
So we allow you to build your own integrations and then reuse them across all of your different applications. So build it once and use repeatedly. And then, I've touched on the business logic and orchestration. I'll really sort of combine that into the NLP and NLU, right? You've got to drive that interaction with customers. And I saw we had a question that come across of, how do we make this sort of a human interaction, from Vinay had asked there. I think this is the place where you sort of choose, can you be intelligent enough with your interaction using NLP or AI engines to drive that, and get the right tool set in there to ask the questions. I never recommend trying to fob off a bot as a human, right? Invariably, somebody will ask a question or find a way to break it, and that's it leads to well, you deceived me. And so it's always better to call this out as you are talking to a bot, and then give somebody the escape handle. I'm not getting what I need. We've all had those horrible experiences. I'm not getting what I need. Let me talk to a real agent, and pull the handle and don't get into people. And so absolutely use NLP to help manage this logic and execution, but don't trap people in there. I saw you were nodding along there. Anything on that human? Since I jumped into a question as we were going, let me just call you out to see if there was anything you wanted to add.
On specifically the human.
Yeah. It looked like I just steamrolled as you were talking, so that's why I was throwing it. If not, I'll keep going.
No. I was just kind of agreeing with what you were saying. Okay. Just agreeing with what you're saying overall, and just I actually personally like the ability to be able to reuse what you've been able to set up already for your own APIs. I think that's important to be able to continue doing that through everything else that you're going to develop.
Yeah, it's very powerful, and with some of our larger clients, it really builds on that start simple and then grow. Because I built one, now I built two or built three, and all of a sudden you've got this really nice suite that makes it easy to do the next integration. Oh, pharmacy did this. Okay, well, eye care needs to do it, or automotive needs it. Well, all of a sudden you've got the integrations already in place. Then right. I think as we think about this from an operations standpoint or from an enterprise standpoint, there's really sort of a service wrap that goes around those four core pillars, which is empowering the organizations to whether it's the operations team or the business analyst teams to really manage the journeys and make changes based on the available info, like Robin was saying earlier. Look at what's going on, tweak and adjust, but making sure there's control, whether it's role-based access controls so that some people can look at the data, but other people can make changes, or it's being able to look at who's going to update assets and creatives, or who's going to debug user events that are going on. Now, you've got the ability to bring all that in with the enterprise control, all of it while you, as a CPaaS provider, you're looking for somebody who is, providing you a high availability system in multiple regions, right? We've all dealt with the problems of PII or data sovereignty that we've got to be able to drive. And so, we look to drive all of that on the platform. So with just a minute left, we'll hit the summary here at the end. Robin, I think the first point ties in with what you're talking about. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I do, because I think that's an important one. Like I said, CX spending is strong. I just want to leave you with that message. No matter what industry you're in, keep an eye on things. Don't let competitors get a leg up, because this is when that happens. And evaluate technologies that you can use that are going to hit on those business metrics, like increasing customer satisfaction or reducing costs, driving revenue, whatever business metric you're looking at. Definitely, be bullish a little bit right now, even though you might be a little concerned about the economy. It's important to keep those customer relationships strong, and technology has become such an important part of it that it's very hard to turn back from that now.
And I would add to that with the try proof of concepts, right? It doesn't have to be a big bang. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to start small. Try something with a small group of customers, with a region, with a store, and just learn your way into it. It doesn't have to be a big investment up front. Just start and get smarter about your business as it goes. And I think that's, going to the second point here, that's where low code, no code really can help you, right? The cost for trying is low at this point. The barrier to entry is nominal. You don't have to get on your IT team's roadmap and time. You can get a try as you go account or license, and be able to start building this out, and then give feedback. Okay, here's what we need to expand in our business to grow this, so that these APIs help solve new problems as they come up and as they evolve. And I think finally, channels, right? Know where your audience is. Robin, you said it earlier. Survey your customers, know where they are, meet them where they are, and follow them as they move, because they're going to, right? We see all the channels coming. Make it easy on yourself to deliver the services across any of the channels when your audience migrates.
Yeah, that's a big thing, is make sure you've integrated that CPaaS automation into any channel. Don't isolate it into just one, or a handful. Whatever you're using as far as your channels, CPaaS should be able to integrate into those.
Awesome. With that, I think we're right at time. We will, since we're at time, we will follow up on some of the questions. Thank you for those of you who sent them in. We will follow up on questions for anybody who dropped them in offline and get back to you. So really do appreciate everybody's time and participation and attendance today. And thank you, Robin. As always, fun chatting with you and sort of going back and forth here. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.